to a bigger audience. We talk about this topic individually with all of our clients, but this is our first presentation to a bigger audience all at the same time.
And I just want to let you know that there's a filming, but they are not filming anyone. So just going to
he's just focusing on me.
Part, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, you're on the angle. Okay, and hope you enjoy. And if you have any question, he's going to stay and then answer your
Yeah, we're going to do some question and answer at the end.
Thank you so much, Edmund.
Thanks. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Or good afternoon, I should say now, almost. So, today what we're talking about is a pretty hot topic in our industry. And the reason why is because a lot of people are not talking about this topic. Everyone wants to say, well, you know, your hearing aids are old, maybe you should replace them. Everyone wants to replace hearing aids, but nobody necessarily wants to fix hearing aids. Part of the reason why is they don't necessarily understand the intricate workings of the things that have to happen in order for things to work. So we're going to talk about all of those things today. So, let's get started. So, tell you a little bit about me and what kind of got me started. That's my family. My brother, he's that guy. That's me. That's my sister. My grandparents and my parents. This whole thing started when we were more or less this age. My grandmother basically said to us, you know, we were sitting down and all the kids were around her and everybody else. So she says to us, you know, it would be great if you guys grew up and fixed my ears. One of you fixed my ears and the other one fixed my knees. Fairly common topics. But basically, it's weird when you're 8 or 10 years old and when somebody tells you something as a career path, you don't necessarily think about that. You know, you say, okay. It's weird how everything kind of happened. The universe is a very fun and mysterious place, and it's just weird how it just pushes you in the direction that you should be going in the first place. So, my background is electronic engineering. I also have a background in professional audio. So I've been setting up sound systems since I was a kid. I kind of got into the IT sector, which is computer information technology. So I kind of got into a lot of high-tech fields. None of them were really fun for me, though, right? It's hard to say that. You know, I've spent all this time and money and energy and resources in training and school, but when you're not having fun in that field, you almost don't want to do those things. You get up and you say, I got to go to work and do that same thing that I keep doing, and I'm not having fun with it. You know, the thing I really enjoyed was setting up sound systems, but it was a lot of work. It was hard. You know, in the evenings at weird hours, you'd have to go and set up a sound system. You didn't have to break it down. The parts were heavy. It was strenuous. It was labor intensive. But I still liked doing it. It was one of my favorite things to do. So later on in life, I was in my early 20s. Same grandmother. Her hearing aid broke down one day. I'm the guy who fixes things, right? That's the thing I do. The same grandmother, I was doing all of these other things. The same grandmother, her hearing aid broke down one day. My dad shows up with it. He says, Edmund, can you fix this for her? She needs it to work. She brought me back into doing the thing I was supposed to do with my life. So, I credit her for helping me get into this industry. Now, today, what we're going to be talking about is some of the fundamentals of hearing aids. What that means is what things need to happen in order to ensure success. Okay? So, one of the things that we talk about is fit-related issues. The second part is sound-related issues. And the third part is fit and sound-related issues, because these two things can happen at the same time. And then lastly, we want to talk about what we call our Lotus method. It's a system that we use step by step to analyze the situation, test, determine what the solution is going to be, and present a solution. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to break it down into pieces so it's not bombarding you with too much information all at once. So, some statistics. 1 in 10 Canadians have a hearing loss. Generally speaking, this is referring to adults. Okay?
How many Canadians?
1 in 10. In terms of adults, about 1 in 10 people have a hearing loss, a degree of hearing loss. Sometimes it's visible and noticeable, other times it's not. Of those people, roughly 40% of those people actually get hearing aids, get fit with a solution. Now here's the depressing fact. Of those people, nearly half of them are dissatisfied with that solution, right? And I'm sure you've either are one of those people or you've heard of one of those people. Now, poorly fit hearing aids cause pain, frustration, isolation, and more. Now, what do I mean by that? Poorly fit, and the way I talk about poorly fit has to do more with the plumbing, for lack of better words. How does the piece inside your ear fit? Okay? Now, there are different types of hearing aids. The ones that are behind the ear, generally speaking with a thin wire, which I saw quite a few of you are actually wearing right now. There is usually a rubberized head on the end of it. Okay? It's a soft little flexible dome, as we call it. Now, a lot of times that dome can cause itchiness. It can cause lack of sound or too much sound, right? Other times, if the hearing aid isn't fit properly, it will cause pressure sores, which actually happened to my maternal grandfather, which is one of the reasons why he stopped wearing his hearing aids. Didn't matter how many times we went to his audiologist at the time. I was, again, maybe 15. We went several times to his audiology department, and they did whatever they thought was right, and they finally said to him, "This is the best it's going to be. If you're coming back for the same reason, don't come back." This was very depressing, and I said to myself, I would never do this to my grandfather, let alone anybody else, right? But they did that to him. So he ended up not wearing the hearing aid. It literally spent most of its time in the drawer. There are lots of people who are in that exact same boat. Now, in terms of poor sounding hearing aids, I always say there's two things to consider here. The silence is way too loud, which means all the things that normally should be a soft sound seem to be over-amplified and exaggerated, which means sounds like this sound like somebody is sanding the paint off the walls with the highest intensity scrubbing power that you can have. Or even reading a newspaper sounds like you're handling aluminum foil, right? Or it sounds, for example, the cars outside your house, which normally should be a soft sound, feel like the cars are in your living room. It's too much. And then the opposite is true. When you put the hearing aids in your ear, I feel like some people have said, I feel like I'm wearing earplugs. I take them out and I hear better. There's so many instances of this happening. And so I want to kind of bring an example. I had a lady yesterday, she came in, we were doing a talk at, it was down in the beach, I can't remember the place. But we had a conversation. It was a noisy place. She says, under normal circumstances, she says, I can hear you just fine. She says, but under normal circumstances, if I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody else in this type of room, it's hopeless. I go to dinner, hopeless. When I'm in those noisy places, I take them out of my ear and I can actually hear. I just tell the person, speak up a little louder, perfect. The hearing aids aren't amplifying all the background noise and preventing me from hearing a face-to-face conversation. There's a fix for that, right? There's a solution for all of these problems. Now, lastly, all three things can be combined in one. So this same lady that I was speaking to yesterday, I said, let's try something, just for fun. I said, put your stuff down on the table, and I said, take your 2 fingers, plug your ears with your hearing aids in your ears. She's looking at me going, what are you talking about? I said, if I'm right about what your settings are, you should hear me better in this noisy environment. She's looking at me going, you can't be serious. I said, yeah, I'm being serious. Put your stuff down on the table, take your 2 fingers, plug your ears. So she did. I said, do you feel like you hear me better now? She's like, I can't believe it. You're right. I can hear you better. And the background noise isn't as much. What the case is, in that type of situation, with the fingers blocking her ears, she was preventing from all the room noise from coming into her ears. And what was actually happening is the sound coming through the microphones, in through the amplifier, and the filters inside the hearing aid, it actually made her hear better. Which means, when you have a poorly fit hearing aid, and the sounds aren't quite what they're supposed to be, you can't participate, you can't function in a situation where you're supposed to be able to function, right? A lot of times I see people with their remote controls, I saw a bunch of them here, and they're up and down, up and down, up and down. They can't find the right place for them to be to hear their best. This is terrible. Hearing aids, just like your glasses, when you put them on, you don't think about them unless they're smudged, right? You put them on and you see better, right? Hearing aids potentially can be that way. There are certain cases where it's impossible to do. When the ear is, and the nerve that carries the sound from the ear to the brain is beyond a point of function. Meaning, if your ability to hear speech, even though the sound is made louder, if your ability to hear speech is less than 50%, things become a lot more challenging, okay? And I can explain a little bit more about that because that is your actual ability. I always say, if, for example, if I gave you guys a brand new pair of running shoes, whatever running shoes they might be, can you go running? If you could run before, sure. But just because you're wearing running shoes doesn't mean you can go running. The same is true for hearing aids. If your ability to hear speech and conversation is poor, hearing aids or no hearing aids, your ability won't rise beyond your actual capability. Now, I am sure this question applies to either yourselves or to somebody you might know. Okay, I've already had a few conversations on the side for people who might actually be experiencing some of these issues themselves, or they actually know somebody who's actually experiencing these problems themselves. So, just a quick survey of the room. How many are noticing this, one of these issues personally? Okay? How many people know somebody who's in this type of situation? Almost everybody. And this is why we do what we do. Now, we talk about what we call our LOTUS method. LOTUS means listen, outcome, test, understand, solution. Okay? And what that means is we first and foremost want to hear what you have to say. Okay? What is your experience level? Are you somebody who's never worn a hearing aid before? And you're just out, somebody said, oh, you should get a hearing aid. You can't hear me properly. Have you tried hearing aids before and you were generally unsuccessful and you returned them? Or are you currently wearing hearing aids that, when I usually ask, how are your hearing aids behaving? And if the look is, or I generally know things aren't quite right. So, LOTUS basically means we listen, we have a conversation. What types of things are you involved in? What kind of activities do you do? What is your actual level of activity, socializing? Outcome. We kind of, based on this conversation, we say, okay, well, what we're trying to do is identify certain things about your life, your lifestyle, to help kind of figure out what we're going to do next. Testing means we actually do the hearing test. If you've got hearing aids, we test the actual settings of your hearing aids. We actually look at the fitting of your hearing aids to make sure that all things are right. A lot of times when we check hearing aids of people who've come in from other clinics, there are so many times where it's laughable as to how somebody actually let this person go out with the settings that they actually have. So many times I've seen hearing aids that are way, way underfit, which means they put them in, they feel like earplugs. They put them in, everything sounds tinny, but nothing sounds clear. They put them in, and it's generally an undesirable effect. And so they end up not wearing the device. And so this is our Lotus method. We kind of analyze step by step and work with you, communicate with you. You are very much part of this conversation when we go through these steps, okay? Because ultimately, our job is to help you have the best conversations ever. Now, today, what we're doing is we're offering a free copy of Why Hearing Aids Don't Work. We've written an article. It was presented in the Toronto Star, but a lot of people may have seen it, they may not have seen it. So we're offering a free copy of the article to you, so you could use it, refer to it, share it if you want to. Plus, we're giving you a free Lotus consultation when you sign up. Now, everybody has these sign-up sheets. All I'm looking for is your name, first name, last name. If you've got an email, great. If you don't got an email, you can write down your phone number. It just allows me to communicate with you after today. If you've got questions, you can by all means ask me these questions. But sometimes people don't necessarily feel comfortable having these types of questions answered in public. So we can always continue our conversation after. Now, I go back to my grandmother. By the time I was done schooling, I started to kind of work in the industry. I managed to actually fit my grandmother before she passed away with her last set of hearing aids. This is the picture. I still have this hearing aid. I shot this picture yesterday. I still have her hearing aid. So it's just something that reminds me to do what is right, to do what is necessary to help my clients hear their best. Thank you for listening. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, my dear.
You told us what LOT you asked before. I can only
Yes.
remember all to the T. What are U and S?
Understand, solution.
And the O?
Listen, outcome, test, understand, solution. Yes, my dear.
I have a question. I know so many people who won't admit that they have a problem, and you know when they're concentrating on your mouth, or they don't hear you. And one of the problems I had was my next door neighbor came straight from China, who was also deaf, and communication was. So we went with the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And I translated my questions into Chinese and handed it to her, and we worked that way. But I just find so many people, and you begin to question yourself, because sometimes they don't hear and they misinterpret something.
There's definitely a lot of that goes on. So I'm not sure if everybody heard I think there was a little bit of a question in there, but quite a lot of commentary. Basically, when you're trying to have a communication, sometimes even with somebody who may not have English as a first language, there are tools that are available through Google Translate and a few other things where you can kind of reestablish communication. Because again, people are not, just because they're deaf doesn't mean they're not able to participate.
Sometimes you begin to doubt yourself.
Sometimes,
Or whether
yeah.
did I hear that right? Or, you may hear the same question several times and then you start to ignore.
Yes. There's a lot of things that happen when somebody can't hear clearly. One of the things that starts to happen is people start bluffing, which means they'll start to agree to things that they may not be necessarily hearing properly, and when somehow the conversation comes back full circle and they say, okay, well, we talked about this, and they're like, whoa, what? That's not what we talked about. We were talking about some other topic at hand, and that's definitely a problem. That becomes, you start to agree to things that you may not actually want. So there's definitely lots of that. There's lots of miscommunication when you don't hear properly.
Well, I'll see you.
Yes, my dear.
Is there a way to get rid of the over noise in a big room?
So the question was, is there a way to get rid of background noise?
Okay.
Right? Now, first and foremost, we have to understand what background noise is. Background noise can be anything. It could be the fans. It could be the street noise outside. Now, under normal circumstances, for somebody who has got normal hearing, we hear all of these sounds, okay? But we hear them appropriately, or at least what we feel as normal is appropriate. Now, our brain, because we're so used to hearing these types of sounds, ignores that sound. Now, when the hearing aid is set so it heightens the level of soft sounds beyond a point of being normal, background noise becomes like it's the foreground, right? Very much in your face, very, very present, okay? And part of the solution to solving that problem is to first and foremost identify, are you getting too much amplification for soft sounds and maybe not enough for everything else, okay? Because that happens a lot. Soft sounds are made much, much louder. Like, feels like I'm literally standing on your head walking and making that noise. All of these sounds should be appropriately loud, okay? And so what happens is if they're appropriately loud, your brain will simply accept it for being what it is, and eventually your brain will say, I don't need to pay attention to it, because your brain knows what to pay attention to.
I told my brain that, but it didn't.
Yeah, but sometimes it's hard to get used to bad sound. Sometimes it's hard to get used to bad sound, right? Why would you want to, right? Some people eventually will acclimatize to it, but why go there? It's stressful. It causes undue stress. It's problematic. It's one of the major problems that we talked about. Quiet sounds are way too loud, okay? Normally those sounds should be made softer and all the other sounds around it. So the normal and mid-level sounds and high-level sounds should be kind of made in such a way where all sounds are appropriately loud. Now, it doesn't have to be rocket science. Something like this, most people can't hear this. Normal people can. You're supposed to be able to hear this noise. You might be able to because your sounds are probably heightened for soft sounds. Maybe. But when I do this, people will jump because if the hearing aid is set way too loud, wow, that's almost an assault on the senses, okay? So we try and make sure that all sounds, soft, normal, loud, are set appropriately loud, okay? So that when you wear your hearing aid, because everything is set in your perception as being normal, your acceptance is much higher. You will actually forget you're wearing a hearing aid sometimes, which seems remarkable. Everyone thinks, I wear the hearing aid, it's just a nightmare. My clients actually complain. They say, I keep forgetting that I'm wearing hearing aids and I step into the shower, or I keep wearing them to bed because they've forgotten they're wearing hearing aids. It's possible.
Sorry, so does that mean that we could take our current hearing aids to someone like you and you can recalibrate it so that we're not bombarded by these background noises?
Excellent question. So he asked, are we able to manipulate our current hearing aids to make basically what I just talked about happen? Make the hearing aid that I'm wearing sound as normal as you say it can sound? And the answer is yes. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to purchase a brand new hearing aid. Sometimes it does. If the hearing aid is compromised, like the microphones or the technology, the amplifier, or something about the hearing aid doesn't fit well anymore and it's just not worth it to maintain, maintaining and refurbishing a 10-year-old hearing aid is not worth it. Something in the 4 to 5 year, yeah, still possible. 3-year, no problem. 2-year, absolutely.
Sorry, why is the older hearing aid not possible to refurbish?
Sometimes parts become hard to find, right? So if something breaks down, finding these parts, because they become discontinued after some time. We try and maintain a good stock level of all kinds of things, but I can't maintain everything, right? So broken battery doors, sometimes hard to find.
So bringing in an old hearing aid to adjust it, to calibrate it properly, requires putting in new parts. Is that?
Not always.
Yeah.
No, not always. Most times it's just hook it up to the computer,
Yeah.
program everything as per what's necessary,
Okay.
and most times within half an hour, 45 minutes, that hearing aid that you absolutely hated
Yeah.
is way more usable and actually more satisfactory. Yes, my dear.
Does different brand of hearing aids fit different kind of people? How do you find out the right one?
Excellent question. She says, well, do different manufacturers' hearing aids fit different people? And how do you know which is the right one for me? So one of the things that we do that make us a little bit different than everybody else is, first and foremost, we are independent retailers of hearing aids, which means we are not affiliated with any one of the manufacturers. This is now a big problem that you may or may not be aware of. Some of the big chain stores, I'm not going to name their names, but you probably know who I'm talking about. These people are owned by the manufacturers of hearing aids. And so when you walk into one of their shops, you will actually be shown only their products, only their product range. You don't necessarily know if you're getting a good fit, bad fit, or otherwise. Just somebody somewhere with a degree has said, this is what you need. I'm just going to take a drink. My throat's getting dry. But here. Okay. So to kind of continue the answer to your question, how do you know which one is the right one for me? When you come to a person like me, independent retailer, we're not affiliated with any manufacturer. I sell every manufacturer's product. But before I sell it to anybody, we put it in our own ears. We listen to the hearing aid. We modify the hearing aid. We try and do everything to determine, is this a good hearing aid? Which means we literally put it on and we drive the car. We put it on, we listen to music. We put it on, we go for a walk in traffic. We put it on, we go inside a shopping mall, sit down in a food court, and listen to see what the hearing aid is doing. Because the manufacturer will make their product always sound wonderful. In their brochures, every hearing aid is magnificent, magical, does wonderful things. That's not always true. In real time, that's not always true. So we do things in such a way to actually verify if the hearing aid is doing what they say it's going to do. We pick and choose hearing aids based on how we feel the actual product performed. Would we put the hearing aid in our ears ourselves? Would we fit our own parents with that device? That's how we kind of figure out which one is a good hearing aid, which one is a bad hearing aid. But every hearing aid is a good hearing aid. In terms of the quality, the build, everything else, they're great hearing aids. Do they work properly for everybody? No. Is there one hearing aid for everybody? No.
How do you know?
How do I know? Yeah. Well, part of my educational background is I literally will look at all the specifications. I've put the hearing aid in myself, and I've tried every hearing aid that we dispense on myself before we've dispensed it on anybody else.
Then how do you know my ear or her ear?
So that comes down to our Lotus method, right? So part of it is listening to your experiences. What is it that you need to hear your best? What types of activities do you participate in? How challenging is your social life, right? If you're the type of person who sits at home, watches TV, reads a newspaper, and every now and again goes grocery shopping and visits their family doctor, that's pretty simple, okay? Relatively simple, basic model hearing aids can handle that. But if you're the type of person who comes to this type of environment often, where There's a community of people. You're dining together, you're participating together, you're exercising together. You go out to a shopping mall, you go have coffee with friends, you go out for dinner. That's complicated. And so you need a different type of hearing aid than the person who sits at home most of the time. So by picking and choosing the hearing aid that is able to handle those types of situations by itself, which means you literally have little to no interaction with the hearing aid. You don't have to push the button, you don't have to change the program, you don't have to do anything. You just walk into the room and you're ready to go. Because the hearing aid has changed itself according to the environment that's around you. Does that answer your question?
A little.
Okay, we can talk about it some more afterwards. I saw another hand right over here.
I belong to a Bible study group, and about half the people there are from the islands.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, they speak very softly,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine, but with an accent.
Mm.
And it's the accent that sort of slows me down. My twin sister wears hearing aids, and she finds the same sort of thing even with her hearing aids. It's the accent that she doesn't always get.
Again,
That makes it difficult.
it definitely does. There's no question about that. Hearing something that you're not used to the first few times is difficult. Over time, your brain gets used to it, right? The more your brain kind of starts to process that information in that type of setting, the better and better you become at handling that situation. It's just like practice, you know, when somebody wants to do something and do it well, they have to practice it many, many times, right? Standing up in front of people, I've practiced many, many times, which makes me feel very comfortable up here doing this type of presentation and answering these types of questions, right?
So tailored hearing aids would help with that?
Definitely, definitely,
Okay.
definitely. Yes, my dear.
Okay, talking about accents, I'm one of them.
Yep.
What I like to say is what to me is way worse is people mumbling and talking too fast, especially on the phone.
Yep. The phone is always a little bit of a challenge. The reason why is when we're face to face, we can see each other. Okay? There's a fun saying. It says, "Put your glasses on so you can hear me better." There's some truth to that. Okay? Now, our brain likes as much input as possible because it makes it easier for us to make sense of what's happening around us. Okay? Now, on a phone, first and foremost, you're using only one ear. Unless you're using the speakerphone, which then uses both, you're generally using one ear. Now, if you've got a hearing loss that your speech capability is fairly low, the phone is always going to be difficult, right? There's a way to solve that problem to a certain degree. First and foremost, if you allow both ears to hear the conversation, typically you actually make sense much more of the conversation rather than holding the phone to just the one ear, which is why modern hearing aids, in terms of the ability to connect to a cell phone, the sound quality from the cell phone directly streaming into the hearing aids is amazing. It's so much better having a call when the sound is coming into both hearing aids compared to just the one hearing aid, right? So it makes a huge difference when you can hear the sound on both sides. Your outcome will be much better. Now, in terms of, again, accents, the more you practice listening to that type of accent, the better you will be at interpreting what has been said. So keep going, but properly fit, properly tuned hearing aids definitely will help.
Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what a typical visit to your company would be and costs and funding and
sure.
any of that stuff?
Absolutely. So let's kind of, the question was, can you give us a little bit of an idea of what happens when somebody comes to see us? So first and foremost, we are a very kind of relaxed type of environment. It doesn't feel like you're coming to a doctor's office. 9 out of 10 times you won't see me in a jacket. Okay, most times you'll just see me in just a white, we call each other by first name. Okay? We even make you a cup of coffee. Why? Because we like conversing with people. We like when people come to talk to us, okay? We're not the type of place that will rush you in, tell me what you have, just one problem and go, okay? I want to know, are you happy? Are you sad? How's life going? What's happening in your situation? Are your hearing aids working properly? Okay? Now, let's say, for example, one of you comes in and says, you know, Edmund, I heard everything you said. I want to try this Lotus method out. Okay? We want to figure out why things aren't working well for me. So we'll come in, we'll identify each particular problem. What's happening? Well, let's say hypothetically, I can't hear in background noise. You know, if I go out for dinner, it's hopeless. I can't have a conversation with a friend of mine, and we go out once a week. How frustrating is that? Now, you're wearing hearing aids. We got to figure out, okay, what are you wearing? Is the plumbing, for lack of better words, the right way? You know, is your sound levels set the right way? Is everything kind of doing the thing that it's supposed to do to help you hear your best? Are you wearing the right hearing aid? A lot of times people are not, okay? And so we kind of go through the process. We kind of say, okay, well, let's look at all of the aspects, the fit, the sound, your hearing ability. And then we talk about, okay, well, these are the things that we measured. Make sure you understand where all the unique problems are and why they're a problem. Make sure you understand what your actual hearing ability is. So you at least say, okay, I have reasonable expectations of myself. You know, putting hearing aids on will not make you hear like you're 19 years old. It doesn't work like that. And so when we kind of go through each one of these steps, we then will produce an actual solution. Here's how we're going to fix this problem, okay? Now in terms of cost, if we've got a hearing aid that's still serviceable, maybe some parts need to be changed. Maybe you need a higher power speaker. Maybe you need an actual custom ear mold. Maybe you need a new hearing aid. The cost will vary based on the solution that we actually come up with. If we are able to kind of service the hearing aid as such, somewhere in between maybe $100, $200, and it can go up to, let's say, $1,000, just depending on what needs to happen. But which is worse, spending $4,000 plus on a brand new set of hearing aids, or spending a much smaller amount making sure your hearing aids are working properly? All right? So my job is to help, first and foremost, help people understand why things are not working. My job is also to help solve those problems, if we can, using what you have. If we're not able to do that with what you have, then I'll show you something and I'll prove that it works way better than what you have. If you're not happy with what I've shown you and you've tried and you say, I have not fallen in love, we can try something else. And we'll find a solution that will work for you. When you fall in love, then you purchase the hearing aid as such. But we want to make sure that you know there's no experimenting, right? When you get the solution, we're going to find a solution. And we're going to be happy with it.
I'm assuming you deal with people who are not wearing hearing aids and are at the stage where they should be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What our process is for everybody. It's for somebody who has never worn a hearing aid before and they're curious. They're saying, well, my friends have had a bad experience. I don't necessarily want to try a set of hearing aids because of that bad experience I've heard about. But I always say to people, don't base your decision on somebody else's experience, right? Make a decision based on your actual experience and outcome that happens when you wear one of our devices, okay? Most times, when we fit a hearing aid, we go through the steps. They come back a week later, they said, this has been the most unexpected, most pleasant experience I've ever had. The things that I heard never actually happened. Right? And they say, I trust you. I get it.
If you have a proper hearing aid, how often do you have to change the batteries?
The average person, depending on their power levels, maybe about once a week. About once a week is average for most people. Some people get less, some people get more. It depends on the size of the battery. The smaller the battery, the more frequent. Like the really small size 10 batteries, average person is getting somewhere between 3 and 5 days. The size 312 is somewhere between 5 and 7 days. Size 13, somewhere between 7 and 10 days. The even larger one, 675, somewhere between 10 and 14 days. Right? However, if you're using one of the modern hearing aids which allows you to stream content into the hearing aid. So for example, if you're watching TV, the sound of the TV is being sent to you, to your hearing aids, that will consume your battery a little bit faster. Okay? So if you've got something like that and you're streaming audio into the hearing aid, that will consume the battery faster. Now, modern hearing aids now are available in rechargeable format. Okay? So if battery replacement is a bane of your existence, you hate doing that thing, there's rechargeable now. So you plug it into the charger at night, charge it up. Usually in about 3 hours you get a full charge. And the average person is getting somewhere between 18 to 20 hours per charge on a rechargeable battery. There were some batteries earlier on that they were promising 16-hour, 18-hour days, and they actually ended up being 8 to 10-hour days, which was really disappointing. But that was first generation rechargeable. The newest models now almost don't have a problem anymore. The average person is getting about 4 to 5 years out of a single rechargeable battery. Any other questions? That was a good question, by the way. No? Yes, my dear.
Question, it was just, whenever you talked about putting your fingers in the
Yes.
ear, I was in New Zealand one time, in the North Island, where they have the hot springs, and
Yep.
we were at the thermal electrical plant.
Mm-hmm.
And the man was taking us around, and the noise of the engines was really quite deafening, and he was busy. He says, if you want to hear me better, put your fingers like that. That will cut out the noise of the engines, and you'll be able to hear me.
Did it work?
Yeah, because I always figured if you did that, you cut down everybody's, you would cut down his voice.
That's why people give me the funny face. They're like, what do you mean? Put my fingers in, I should hear you better with my fingers in my ears? And I said, yeah, because you're allowing the filtering of the hearing aid to happen.
Well, this is just the ordinary ear, this wasn't the
Oh,
hearing aid.
well, that's different. He must have been talking quite loudly. But people with hearing aids, in that type of situation, what happens is you're allowing the hearing aid to filter the sound for you, apply directional microphone technology, which means let me hear the person right in front of me rather than the entire background noise room, and lo and behold, it works.
And I sometimes still do this if I'm at a place where they're playing the music extremely loud. like
Absolutely.
some of these
Yep.
restaurants. If I want to talk, I just do that.
Yeah, restaurants unfortunately are becoming louder and louder, which is kind of upsetting, you know. But eventually they'll figure it out and go back to a more closed off sections where it kind of isolates the noise. Yes.
I know, but that subject you just say from louder in the restaurants,
Mhm.
I just heard a couple of days ago that they do that on purpose because they want you to get out fast so the next customers can be out.
There might be that reason. I've not heard that particular reason before, but it's possible.
Are you discovering in your business that people are going deaf younger because of all this headphones and loud music at nightclubs?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And let me explain what I mean. Wear and tear is going to happen regardless, you know. You guys had loud rock music, we have nightclubs now, you know. People frequenting these places more and more, especially in cities like this, is happening more and more. So yes, there is generally more wear and tear. Young people, though, are not necessarily working in factory type of settings where huge machinery exists. And even if they are, it's mandated that they wear hearing protection. So I would say more or less it evens out.
Well, I've noticed that more and more, like construction crews, landscapers,
Yep.
over the last 15 years, like
every year there are more of them wearing that equipment.
Well, one of the things I've found, and we've kind of noticed it in our business, is our average age of our client is becoming younger. But I chalk that up to people are noticing their hearing loss earlier. They know that there's a solution available. They come in sooner because they want to take better care of themselves. So generally speaking, I think it's because they want to kind of more actively pursue better health rather than kind of waiting and saying, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, right?
I just run into more deniers. Yeah.
There's a lot of people like that. Yes, my dear.
I'm just wondering, are there federal or provincial legislation concerning hearing aids as a medical device?
Well, hearing aids in general are medical devices, and they need to be prescribed. So there's a prescribed
by
doctors,
yeah,
audiologists. Yeah.
or some. Well, for instance, I'm aware of a person who recently got a very new type of hearing aid, Signia, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering if, in order for them to even market it, it was marketed on a computer, does it have to be regulated before they can even sell it? Or
So everything that is sold in Canada, everything, in terms of a medical device, first and foremost has to be Health Canada certified. Okay? Then in Ontario, we have an organization called the Assistive Devices Program. Every one of these manufacturers has to first and foremost present the product to the Assistive Devices Program. The Assistive Devices Program then screens this product saying, okay, yes, it meets the criteria of being a hearing aid, and then they will fund that particular device under that program. Now, there are devices, for example, there's a product called Lyric, okay, which is a device that you put into the ear or have somebody put into your ear. It stays in your ear for about 3 to 4 months. The battery runs out after that, they pull it out, they put in a fresh one. This is a hearing device. It's not classified as a hearing aid because it's a disposable product, okay? But it's a subscription-based type of device, which means you pay for a subscription. So it might be 3 years, it might be 5 years, it might be whatever. You keep going back every 3-4 months to have somebody take it out, put in a fresh one. There are products like this, right? Some people say, yep, that's for me. Doesn't make sense in my mind because the cost of that device that you keep throwing away over time costs almost 3 times as much as a regular, even a top-of-the-line hearing aid. So you have to think about what you want and make that happen. Any other questions? Yes?
How many outlets do you have?
I have 2 physical locations here in Toronto. Both locations are kind of in between this location. So one is at Coxwell and Danforth, and the other one is here at the Parkway Mall, which is at Victoria Park in Ellesmere.
Are you guys affected by any of the construction that's going on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But we're upstairs in the professional offices for the time being. We will eventually go back down on the main floor, so it'll be easily accessible. No stairs to climb, no elevator to use. We'll eventually go back down on the main floor. This easily, no problem. Elevator right now is accessible, so you can easily come to our office for that. Yes, you had a question.
The title, the do's and the don'ts of hearing aids. Would you tell us about the
So
what
there's,
should I do, what I should not do?
well, the do's and don'ts, it's kind of a misleading title because what we talked about are the do's and don'ts. You know, there's the physical fit, there's the physical sound, and then there's the combination of those two. Those are the reasons generally why people aren't happy with their hearing aids. Now, if you want to get into a much more detailed conversation as to why things aren't working for you, definitely book a time with us. We'll sit and talk exactly what's wrong. Okay? Yes?
So I missed part of your introduction, but
I wanted to know, so are you saying that there is more now than just amplify the sound of the hearing aid, that there is a hearing aid that can actually differentiate the sound?
Definitely.
There is.
Definitely.
That
So
would be the new.
the question was, are there hearing aids now that will actually differentiate speech from noise?
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's part of as the modern hearing aids, as they go, the more intelligent they become at determining what is speech versus what is noise, right? Previously, let's say even 5 years ago, it was much more simplistic. If, like say for example, the fan turned on, the hearing aid would say, okay, that's a steady state noise, isolate that particular noise level and bring it down. So there was a gain reduction for that frequency range. Good, but not great, okay? Now, the hearing aid, because the chip inside, the processor inside is so quick, it will actually reduce the noise in between the syllables of words, which is incredible. And it doesn't necessarily care where the sound is coming from. It could be from behind you. So for example, if you're sitting having dinner in a restaurant, under normal circumstances, the older hearing aids, they would go into a directional mode, which means focus on what's right in front of you. But your waiter is right behind you, and they want to tell you about the day's specials. Your hearing aid is locked into this forward pattern, and you can't hear the guy behind you. The newest model of hearing aid, the one of the most advanced in my opinion, doesn't care where the sound is coming from. If it sounds like speech, bring it in. So you can actually hear your waiter behind you. You can hear these two people beside you. You can also hear the person right in front of you.
Okay. So do you have access to all the hearing
Yes.
aid? You do?
Yes.
Not just to one company?
That's the beauty of being an independent dealer of hearing aids. We don't kind of bow down to any one manufacturer. One of the things I said is a lot of these bigger chain stores that have more than 100 locations, these are manufacturer-owned clinics, right? And so their presentation in terms of here's a solution for you, is based on what that manufacturer provides, right? They really don't kind of go out of that zone.
So you're kind of like a broker.
No, I'm the guy who literally helps you.
No, I appreciate that, but in terms of working with all different kinds of companies and models and that sort of
Well, I think it makes me unbiased.
Yeah.
It makes me unbiased. I don't pick and choose because I have particular affiliation with any one manufacturer. I pick and choose based on the conversation we have with you. You need X to solve your problem. If X doesn't work, I have product Y that I can also show you that will potentially do what we need it to do. But X and Y doesn't have to be the same product, same manufacturer.
I think most people that go anywhere to any of these places kind of expect that kind of attitude and that kind of service.
People believe that that's what they're walking into, but 9 out of 10 times is not.
Yeah.
What is that new company that you just mentioned?
What was my company?
The new company you would just, and then somebody there asked you a question after.
Lyric?
Oh, the Lyric?
You said, no, after. After you said there is a new company, that doesn't matter if the sound
Oh.
is from there or
So
from
normally
there.
I don't say the product name, again, in an open environment like this. But if you want to talk about the product, I have a brochure of it in the back. This is one of my favorite hearing aids that I would put on my own ears today if I wanted to, if I needed to. But I have a brochure for you in the back.
So
You're
at
welcome.
Parkway Mall, do we look for Lotus? Is that what we look for?
No, you look for Hearing Aid Source. That's my company name. I have cards and everything in the back over there.
Oh, you're gonna give us some?
Yes, yeah.
I want to sign up right now.
You want to sign up right now? Sold! Just fill in your name and perfect.
It's worth the trip to Acton.
I am glad. I am so glad. I find a lot of people have so many questions about this topic, and they don't necessarily have an opportunity to talk to somebody about these types of topics because, again, a lot of clinicians are not comfortable talking this way. I would definitely agree with that. See, my background, because again, my background is electronic engineering. Engineers, in general, are problem solvers. They will go looking for the problem, right? And they won't rest until they figure out the solution to that problem. This is my nature, right? I go looking for the problem, and then I'll ultimately transfer this information to my team, right? For example, I have a fun example. I have a gentleman who's blind, okay? He's been hard of hearing. He's been using hearing aids for quite some time. Under normal circumstances, he's using the cane. There are times where he also uses a dog, okay? And so he came into me, he heard me on the radio, because I'm on the radio on AM 740 on Saturday mornings, talk about our happy stories. And so he heard me on the radio, he says, I want to come talk to you. So he booked an appointment, he came to meet me. And he said to me, Edmund, you know, I feel like I'm not confident with what I'm hearing. I can't see, so I need to be really confident with what I hear. So I said to him, okay, no problem. We did his test, basically went through the process of picking and choosing a specific hearing aid for him. I fit him with the hearing aid. We did a very specific type of test, which very accurately helps him define where the sound is coming from, right? He needs to essentially see with his ears, and he needs to be aware of everything happening around him. So I fit him with this one particular device, the one that I'm going to give you the brochure for. And I said to him, I said, leave your cane here. He didn't have this dog at the time. I said, leave your cane here. I said, I want you to follow me just by listening to my voice. And he's looking, he's now thinking, what are you going to do with me here? So I said, I'm not going to give you my arm. I said, I only want you to follow me based on where you hear my voice coming from. I will not make you bump into things. I said, but I want to show you how confident you will be after I do this thing for you. So I literally walked him through our Parkway Mall location, in the mall, around furniture. Didn't bump into anything once. He says to me, Edmund, I can't believe how well I'm hearing. I can hear everything. I know exactly where everything is. And I said, perfect. That's what you need. He comes in with such confidence now, it's remarkable. He's like a new man. It's amazing to see. I call it my make a blind man see story. I have lots of these stories. I love sharing these stories.
And you do that at 7:40 in the mornings?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I talk about my happy stories.
Saturday morning.
Saturday mornings, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. I'm in somewhere around the 8:30 time frame. Any other questions? I thank you for listening to me talk today.
Thank you very much.
And if you're interested in continuing our conversation, fill in these forms. I will make sure you get some information and we can then chat outside of this room. Oh, before you go, I want to introduce you to that guy in the back over there. The guy who looks just like me but isn't me. That's my brother Andre. Andre, I want to show you this. Let's go back here. I want to show you this. There it is. Hold on. There it is.
The one with the big hair.
And my sister got into medicine, so maybe one day she'll fix knees, but she didn't get a chance to help my grandmother. But that's us. It's a family business. I do have a card. Yeah, it's all in the back over here, my dear. Well, good.
Okay, so are you at both locations yourself?
I'm at both locations. Monday, Tuesdays, I'm at the Parkway Mall location. Wednesday, Thursday morning, Friday, I'm at the Coxwell location.
Yeah,
But
we know that
I'm
area.
easily accessible.
Good.
Right?
Okay.
If not me, then my brother.
What's his name
Sorry,
again?
Andre.
Andre, right.
Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. Good. Did I pick up the right brochure?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's our brochure. It
Yep.
gives us the address.
Yep.
This is that product that I was telling you about
Right.
that kind of picks up 360 degrees
That's
around
cool.
you. This is what I would put in my ear today if I needed one.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
Because we're very naive.
I'm your tour guide.
I sense there's a trust required.
I'm a tour guide. You know, I'm not a salesperson. It's my job to help you find the best solution for you.
Very good.
Right.
We'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
Good. I'll carry it. It's going to blow off again.
It might.
Got a rubber dome on top, and it's very essential in basic gears, and it's got a black face on it. So it's very, very, very discreet. Probably the most discreet hearing aid around. Yeah.
That's important again, cosmetically.
Look, I know you can hear me. Does it mean it's the best hearing aid around? No, it depends on where you don't feel like there's a priority for you. If your number one priority, people cannot see that I'm wearing this hearing aid. If that's your number one priority, well then our conversation is going to be good. But if your number one priority is hearing, number one, if your number one priority is hearing, well then we have a different conversation. So that's what this whole Lotus thing is. The very first thing we do, we sit down and we talk. What are you looking for? What difficulties do you have now with your current system? What are the challenges you continue to have? Yeah. What are the challenges you continue to have? And what if I were to able, so if your friend came to me, I might show him a few different options. Say, hey, what I do often, I move people out of the system.
Okay.
Let me tell you why. And let me tell you how. I first try them in the silk. Take the silk, take it home, use it for a week. Okay? Then